As we all know, a clear and well-structured user interface is important for the work of air traffic controllers. I am Norbert, Product Manager at Rohde and Schwarz, and in the next couple of minutes I would like to introduce you to the graphical user interface of the CERTIUM VCS controller working position. The graphical user interface shall not only provide easy orientation, but also enable intuitive operation so that the controller can focus on his actual task, guiding aircrafts. The flexibility of CERTIUM VCS allows your system administrator to configure the graphical user interface according to the controller needs. This does not only mean defining the position or size of a button, but it also means defining the label of a button, the icon, the color, and so on. If that's not enough, CERTIUM VCS offers the possibility for a complete GUI customization to make it resemble your old VCS system. This reduces the need for extensive controller training when introducing CERTIUM VCS. Let's take a closer look at the system. Here we see the default graphical user interface of a CERTIUM VCS controller working position. It is divided into 4 areas. At the top, we have a message field and various function keys. On the left-hand side, we have the air-ground communication part. On the right-hand side, we have the ground-ground communication. And below, we have a call queue with the call status indication. If you look at the very top, you will see 3 message boxes. The first message box is indicating the selected role. The second box is indicating various system status messages, either entered by the supervisor or automatically generated by the system. And the third message box shows the controller ID logged into this controller working position. On the far right, we have a green circle that shows the status of the controller working position, and below that we have a time indicator to let the controller know of the current system time. Below the message boxes, we have a group of functional keys which have been defined by the system administrator. Here in our example, we have an emergency button that allows for emergency communication air-ground and ground-ground according to standard ED137. We have buttons for audio functions, the roles menu, trainer-trainee button, short-term recording, and many more. Now that we have looked at the generic function of the controller working position, let's take a closer look at air-to-ground communication functions. The air-ground communication area is divided into 3 fields. Here we have the radio resources, here we have the radio pages for navigation, and here we have the radio functions, for example, cell call, air-ground, ground-ground dispatch functionality, manual main standby switching of radio resources, and cross-coupling. When looking at the radio resource button, we see the name of the radio resource defined by the system administrator at the top. Below, we see the frequency of the radio resource, which is either automatically read from the radio or manually set by the system administrator. The white field here indicates the strength of a received carrier signal, and below we have the RX and TX buttons for the controller to select the radio resource in RX monitoring or TX traffic mode. The green background here indicates the radio status. For this, the system continuously reads event messages. Green means everything is okay. In case of a warning, the color would change to yellow, indicating to the controller that there is a problem with this radio resource, and he has to inform the supervisor. When the controller wants to receive something, he selects the RX button of the radio resource. The button turns blue, and in case of a reception, the button starts flashing. In case the controller wants to answer, he selects the TX button of the radio resource. The button turns blue, and by pressing PTT, the controller is ready to transmit. The TX button will flash, and the flashing RX button will indicate to the controller that the transmission was successfully sent and received back by the radio as expected. Having seen some details of air-ground communication, let's next focus on ground-to-ground communication. The ground-to-ground communication area is divided in 3 fields. Here we have the telephony resources, which can be direct access, instantaneous access, or similar buttons. We have navigation buttons here for the telephony pages, and on the far right we have telephony functions such as a history book, an address book, a dial pad, call transfer, and conferencing. When the controller wants to initiate a telephone call, a ground-to-ground call, he presses the target button. The call is set up, it rings, and if the call is answered, the controller can communicate. In case of an incoming call, the controller sees the call in the call queue. He can answer the call from the call queue and start communicating. The call status button indicates to the controller with whom he is talking and how long he is talking. When the communication is finished, the controller presses End Call. Besides standard air-to-ground and ground-to-ground communication functions, CERTIUM VCS, being a full IP system, supports various native data applications. Let's see what this means. We have already seen some examples of data integration. You remember the monitoring of the radio status and the message display up here. Another great example of data integration is video streaming. The CERTIUM VCS provides the ability for video signals to be fed directly into the controller working position, allowing the controller to increase the situational awareness to make the right decisions when needed. This concludes our short introduction to the CERTIUM VCS graphical user interface. We have seen standard air-to-ground and ground-to-ground communication capabilities, but also new advanced data applications made available to controllers through the CERTIUM VCS.